Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're totally shattering some stereotypes. We're going to uncover the surprising, the gritty, and honestly, the completely hidden reality of an absolute icon of American literature. Seriously, just forget everything you thought you knew about the woman who penned one of the most famous domestic novels in history, because the real story, well, it's way more fascinating. Okay, let's just dive right in. Most of us instantly recognize her face, right? This is Louisa May Alcott, universally known to history as the children's friend. She's the beloved, incredibly wholesome creator of Little Women. When we think of her, we picture her sitting in a cozy, sunlit parlor penning these sweet moral lessons for young girls. I mean, she's basically a staple of our childhood reading.
But, we really have to ask a pretty provocative question here. Did the author of literally America's most wholesome family novel harbor a dark, sensational secret? Think about it. How did a woman famous for her sweet, domestic fiction also write anonymous thrillers packed with murder, drug use, and mind control? No way, right? It seems like this massive contradiction. So, to understand it, we've got to look past the mythology and get to know the real woman.
Part 1 of our story is all about poverty and pot boilers and the secret life of A.M. Barnard.
So to really get her motivations, we first have to look at the crushing poverty of her youth. Her father, Amos Bronson Alcott, was a brilliant philosopher, friends with Ralph Waldo Emerson, but his utopian experiments, they totally failed. And that left the family completely destitute. This sparked a desperate, lifelong drive in Louisa to become the sole breadwinner for what she herself called her pathetic family. And because of that, she led this brilliant double life. In public, she played the role of the children's friend, all wholesome domestic fiction and sentimental moral lessons. But in secret, she was A.M. Barnard, churning out these intense gothic thrillers centered on madness, mind control, and vengeance. She even created characters like Jean Muir, this aging, fascinating actress who seduces and manipulates a wealthy family for revenge. Talk about a total 180 from the morals she preached under her own name.
And the thing is, she was unapologetically pragmatic about this secret gig. She actually wrote, "I wrote rubbishy tales for they paid best." She didn't have the luxury of sitting around waiting for the perfect artistic muse to strike. No, she was churning out these sensational blood and thunder stories as a necessary mask, just to quickly pay off her family's mounting debts. It was rapid-fire, survival mode work. But, it also gave her a fantastic outlet to channel her frustrations with society's expectations of women.
Which brings us to a baptism of fire, the absolute turning point in her life.
The outbreak of the American Civil War changed absolutely everything for her. Her path into the war was really brief, but just utterly devastating. In December of 1862, a very determined Louisa enlists as a Union nurse. Through that bitter winter of 62 to 63, she faces the raw, brutal realities at Georgetown's Union Hotel Hospital. But by January 1863, we're talking after just 6 weeks of service, she contracts severe typhoid pneumonia. And tragically, to treat it, she gets dosed with calomel. That's a treatment that caused her to have permanent mercury poisoning. So in just 6 rapid weeks, her service transformed her from a writer of whimsical flights of fancy into this grounded pioneer of literary realism. But man, it came at a permanent physical cost that she'd endure for the rest of her life.
Now, before she actually realized the physical toll all this would take, her spirit was fiercely resilient. She famously wrote, "I've enlisted. If I never come back, make a bonfire of my boxes." Her letters home, which she later published under the incredible, witty pen name Tribulation Periwinkle, perfectly captured the unbelievable bravery and raw humor she took into the hospital. She was even joking about marching on Washington and hugging her family without a vestige of unmanly emotion right before she left.
But those romantic ideals of war, they vanished quickly. She was instantly assaulted by the vilest odors of the hospital, way worse than anything she could have possibly imagined. Picture this. She was elbow deep, scrubbing mud, blood, and grime from wounded men. She had to comfort double amputees as they faced surgery literally without the use of ether. She sat writing letters for young soldiers dying of the subtle fever, and she quietly witnessed the profound, silent grief of a father watching his son pass away. It was horrific. But the grueling, visceral horrors she experienced in those wards gave her this authentic, experience-based voice. When she eventually published these letters as hospital sketches, it firmly established her reputation as a serious literary writer.
But that brings us to the price of success and how she became a trapped icon. See, this newfound respect proved she could write serious literature, and it gave her the critical clout that led directly to her greatest triumph,
In 1867, her publisher straight up asks her to write a book for girls. Now, she wasn't exactly thrilled, but she drew on her own family's experiences and pounded out Little Women in just 2 months. It was a massive, unprecedented success. It finally achieved her life's goal of securing her family's wealth. But here is the ultimate, tragic irony. It completely trapped her. She became the children's friend persona forever. Her readers just kept clamoring for sequels, and she was basically forced to put aside her preferred serious adult fiction just to keep churning out these stories for children.
And if you look at her private journals, they reveal this profound, quiet frustration. Listen to this entry from when she was 40. 20 years ago, I resolved to make the family independent if I could. At 40, that is done. It has cost me my health, perhaps. Her massive success forced her to sacrifice her own preferred artistic voice and to endure chronic, debilitating pain, all to maintain that financial independence for the people she loved. She actually described being a famous author as being like a man up in a balloon, with his family pulling the ropes to keep him tied to the earth.
Let's move on to her enduring legacy, her activism, and her reality.
Because Louisa May Alcott was absolutely not one to wallow in self-pity. Despite the constant, daily physical pain of that mercury poisoning and the creative confinement of her fame, she didn't just write about capable women, she actively fought for them. She translated her fierce independence into tangible, boots-on-the-ground activism in the real world. We're talking about a passionate, lifelong abolitionist who actively hid runaway slaves in her family home. She didn't just support women's suffrage as an idea, she literally drummed up local women to vote in school elections, and she became the very first woman to register to vote in Concord in 1879. She advocated heavily for temperance and women's rights. And through all of this, she financially supported her entire extended family, eventually adopting her niece and nephew when her sister passed away. She flat out refused to just be a passive observer of post-Civil War America.
And it all culminated in a sobering final number: 55. She passed away at only 55 years old, just 2 days after her father died. She had literally worked herself into the grave, pushing through severe illness and exhaustion just to protect and provide for her family. In fact, her final act was making sure her copyrights were held in trust so they could continue supporting her loved ones long after she was gone.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, we really have to look at the totality of her incredible life and just wonder. I mean, yes, she achieved her ultimate goal of saving her family from poverty, but it came at the immense cost of her physical health and her true artistic voice. Was the sacrifice of the real Louisa May Alcott worth the legacy we have today? What other incredible, dark, and groundbreaking stories might she have told if she hadn't been forced behind the mask of the children's friend? Now that is a fascinating question to ponder. Thanks so much for joining me, and keep exploring the real history behind the stories you think you know.